let us all do we can to build a better future.
We're going to move on now to our final story of the day. And I wanted to bring this up because it's a follow-up towards a story I covered earlier last week. Joe Rogan. He keeps on getting censored or being called to be censored by corporate media and activists and so many other people. If we can, let's actually switch it to the story, if we can. From NPR. So, what the Joe Rogan podcast controversy says about online misinformation ecosystem. Now, this article is going to be bringing up the fact that 270 health professionals wrote a letter to Spotify asking Spotify to remove Rogan's interview with Dr. Robert Malone. Joe Rogan, like anybody else, like Jimmy Dore, Tucker Carlson, Howard Stern, or all of you, has a right to a platform and speak his mind. And I've brought this up on the show, and I want to be very careful how I say this on YouTube as well, because YouTube likes to censor us. And when we did a video coverage on how CNN was smearing Joe Rogan, that video was flagged, and we were given a strike. And I just got to say this right now. In this era of censorship, it's not the answer to those 270 people that wrote that letter to Spotify. Stop being punks and go on Joe Rogan's show. Bring one of your heavy hitters, go on his show, and deliver your perspective. And don't just go ahead and run Spotify saying to remove that video, that interview. Because this is, again, an article that is in support of calling for more regulations online, more censorship. That's why I say to everyone, double check and triple check that you're still subscribed to your favorite content creator, because YouTube likes to unsubscribe you from your favorite content creators. It happens. So, an open letter urging Spotify to crack down on COVID-19 misinformation has gained the signatures of more than 1,000 doctors, scientists, and health professionals, spurred by growing concerns over anti-vaccine rhetoric on the audio app's hit podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. Medical and scientific experts slammed Rogan's track record of airing false claims about the pandemic, vaccines, and unproven treatments, calling it a sociological issue of devastating proportions. Spotify say has enabled him. While audio apps so far have escaped the scrutiny that has befallen social media platforms such as Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, the pressure on Spotify illustrates how podcasts have emerged as an influential source of misinformation. And what I gotta say is this. To those health professionals, one of you has to be a big brain person, the smartest one in the group. Go on Joe Rogan's show. Go on Joe Rogan's show and stop being a punk and asking Spotify to remove that video down. Bring your points of view, your perspectives. Have a debate with Rogan. Share your perspective of what's going on. Unless you're too afraid. Because this whole idea of running to a video platform or audio platform saying, you got to take this thing down, it's a punk move. And already we're seeing what kind of environment we're living in thanks to how Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube like to suppress free speech, like to silence and remove people. And all what these platforms are doing is creating bigger echo chambers. It's causing a divide. And the thing is, censorship is not the answer. It never was, never will be. And again, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, especially YouTube. Why are you acting like publishers? Because when you remove yourself as being a private corporation and start acting like a publisher, you're opening up a whole other can of worms. Now, right now, big tech, like any other lobby group, has a lot of friends in Washington, D.C., so they're going to be okay. But I want to just add this here and bring this up, because the article keeps going into detail how Rogan is somehow causing so much misinformation, how Rogan is somehow causing such a scandal. In here, Rogan's reach worries health experts. Wallace, again, one of the individuals in the article, was particularly worried because Rogan, a stand-up comedian TV personality, has such a big audience. While Spotify does not disclose how many people listen, his show ranked as the platform's most popular podcast globally over the last 2 years. He's worth a lot to the company. In 2020, he signed an exclusive licensing deal with Spotify, reportedly worth $100 million. Which I gotta say, good on Joe Rogan, because I remember when the Joe Rogan Experience first started off, and I've seen videos at its very beginning. Started from nothing, look where he's at now. And by the way, and Jimmy Dore's covered this, a lot of people have covered this as well. Rogan is more popular than CNN, MSNBC, ABC, Fox News, CBS, and any other corporate media outlet. And why? Because people trust him. He has a great show, and he's had numerous guests on his show. And here's a little bit of a free lesson, show running 101. You want to have a great show, you got to have a great co-host, you have to have a great team, and you also have to have interesting guests showing up on your show. And they have to be different people all the time. What this looks like is anger and jealousy towards somebody that's not part of the big neoliberal club with all the Democratic and Republican lawmakers and corporate media. Again, corporate media has had for a long time gone after influential content creators. Look at how, again, corporate media, articles from Vice, Vox, BuzzFeed, smeared PewDiePie. Again, if you're more popular than the mainstream media, they're going to smear you. They're going to come after you. They're going to silence you. They're going to try and say that you're a threat to free speech, that you're a threat to science, you're a threat to everything. But where is the proof and evidence? And to those people who signed the letter, I'm going to say this again. One of your heavy hitters, go on Joe Rogan's show. You want to embarrass him? You want to hit him with facts? Go ahead. Go on his show. But don't be a punk and start hiding behind a letter towards a company. No. One of you go there. You go on his show if you got the nerve. But expecting now, and again, this is what's to be expected. Now you're going to see a whole tsunami of articles from NPR, ABC, and all these other corporate media outlets saying how Rogan is a threat. You want to know what's a real threat to democracy? Money in politics. Thanks to Citizens United and the McCutcheon's decision where money is speech and corporations are people, anybody can buy a politician. Anybody can influence an election. Anyone. But you think CBS or Fox or MSNBC are going to cover it? No. We here at Heartland's Media will. We'll talk about how, again, money and politics influence our elections. Joe Rogan has a popular show, and it's going to get attacked. And they're going to do everything they can to make Spotify censor him and remove his content. If Spotify, if you want to do that, then welcome to the club of what YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram are doing to their content creators. And when I say that the censorship is real, it's not only independent media that's on the chopping block. A lot of content creators have to be very careful what they can and cannot say on YouTube. Thankfully, there's platforms like Rockfin and Odyssey, and I wish both those platforms much success to grow and challenge YouTube's monopoly. But this concerns me, because this article that NPR is, again, promoting here is how we need to regulate misinformation. You know, it wasn't too long ago, especially in 2016, where we saw numerous smear pieces towards Bernie Sanders. Now, we all know that Bernie Sanders didn't have the backbone to stand up to corporate media or defend his followers, but throughout all of 2016, what did we see? Smear pieces on Medicare for all, smear pieces on Bernie Sanders' progressive policies. But gee, wow, turns out, especially now in this year, turns out Medicare for all, good idea. Turns out all these other progressive policies like student debt forgiveness, medical debt forgiveness, is a good idea. Turns out that they actually work. Do you think corporate media is going to admit it? Only at the last minute. That's what they'll do, and move on and forget about it. Just like how a lot of these politicians moved on and forgot about Martin Luther King Day the day after. See what I mean here? We live in a hypocritical, neoliberal system. Joe Rogan didn't do anything wrong. Joe Rogan had a very interesting guest on his show. And so to these medical professionals, one last time, if you have a backbone, if one of you truly is a heavy hitter, smart person, big brain, and you are so triggered by that interview that Joe Rogan did with Dr. Malone on the pandemic and the vaccine, why don't you go on his show? Go on his show and explain your perspectives. Have a spine. Have some heart. Maybe that video might gain some traction too. Joe Rogan has had a lot of guests on this show. But if you're going to be a punk about this, I'm not going to respect you. Because, again, this article is about censorship and trying to regulate, quote-unquote, misinformation. I can't tell you how many times we've had to protect our videos and save our videos because the YouTube algorithm got it wrong. By the way, Spotify being a platform, as a platform, it can't just go in there and start telling a person what to do. Remember, Rogan signed an exclusive contract with them. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of stipulations in there that they cannot influence or interfere in his work. And they shouldn't. Social media, the internet, is supposed to be an exchange of ideas. So with that being said, as a final word for this story, free speech is extremely fragile. And of course, there's going to be a lot of stories that corporate media will never cover. About the whistleblowers, about the activists that are speaking truth to power. But they want to go after Joe Rogan because they see him as a threat. And you know what? More power to him. He's more popular than all these corporate media hack frauds. And at least at the end of the day, this proves to me that we got to break the monopoly of corporate media, now more than ever. And we need to start supporting independent media to speak truth to power. Because when's the last time you trusted corporate media? When was the last time you could trust any of these authors, all these people who, again, keep on spewing neoliberal lies, protecting the establishment, saying we got to trust the status quo? The status quo, those in power abandon us. And that's a fact.